Didn't do much about that. Obviously, love it to be nice and sunny. A couple of little housekeeping things, because we're in a school and obviously we have housekeeping things that we have to do. So we've got fire exits outside and also at the back. If the fire alarm goes off, we're really not expecting a drill at this time of night. It probably will be the leisure centre, unfortunately. But we'll just go congregate out to the car park out there. You've all got access to a Chromebook and you should have logged in. I think everybody's managed to do that okay. I am a maths teacher, so I teach secondary maths here at the Weald. I've got kids ranging from 11 to 18. Part of the things we're trying to do here is to encourage the use of technology and in all subjects, so across the curriculum, because we know we live in an ever-increasing digital society. So what we're going to have today is we're going to have a couple of sessions. So some of it will be hands-on, some of it will be listening to some keynotes. We're really lucky we've got Jem from Google. Give away, Jem. So she'll be doing a keynote before we break for another cup of tea, but later on. And we've got various other speakers who are going to introduce themselves if they come along too. I've tried to keep the talk tonight really from education. I really want you to hear what teachers are doing in their classroom and how they use it. Okay, so what I've done is I've given you a little task in classroom, a nice easy task to break through into using Google Classroom, which was a simple question. The reason why I've asked you that question is because I sent a Google form off to some schools around the world, which will form part of my talk a bit later on. And they've given us some data about their favourite English football club, the Harry Potter character, and things like that. And whichever one you guys have decided we're going to have a little look at, we're going to explore the data that they've sent, and you can see where that's come from. So that's kind of a bit of fun for later on. We're going to use, so if you are on Twitter and you like tweeting, we've got the hashtag TMEdtech for tonight, and we are also streaming live on YouTube, which is exciting. I've not done a teacher meet where it's been streamed live, so that's kind of cool. We've got some sponsors around the room who have brought some stuff for you to have a look at and play with. We've got Ollie Drossel, Nick Cox from XMA, Tom, I can't remember your surname, from Smart Lab? Sam Lab, sorry. And we've got Jackie from Pulse CSI. So please go have a look at their stands later. Ollie's going to be doing a live Google Expedition, so we're actually going to go on a virtual field trip, which our students have been on today, which will be exciting for you all. And you'll all actually get to experience this with the headsets, and like you'll just be kids. Because that's what it's like. It's really cool. Let's start about 5 there. So that's the running order. So I'm just going to do that. So my welcome's done. We've lost the speaker, unfortunately, due to sickness. So we should still be on time. So we've got a few sessions from 5:30 till 6. And then Jem's keynote, and then we'll break for some refreshments, and then we've got some more sessions after that. I'm a big believer of this. Okay, I'm a really big believer of this. It's what it looks like when you just stick technology in and don't change what you're doing. And tonight, hopefully, you'll get a flavour of. It's not about the apps that you use. It's about you guys and how you use them. Okay, so we're going to give you a little snippet, a little play, and a little ideas. And the idea is take as much of it as you like. And what I've done is with the form that I'll put you to put at the start, I will share all the resources, all the slides with you from tonight. After the next week, probably by the time I'm finished. And actually, your forms are also going in for a couple of prize draws. So we've got a prize draw for a meal voucher, which Class Charts are very kindly given to us, which is lovely. Each school will be entered into a competition to win a class set of Chromebooks, a full class set of Chromebooks. So that's really exciting. I think that's all the prizes for now. I think there might be one other I just need to check, which I'll check whilst going to the first session. So, John Neal, who's another Google educator and another Edtech fanatic teaching, gave me that slide. I found that on Twitter the other night, and I said to him, can I share that? Because actually, those words are really powerful. The power of Edtech doesn't come from any app. It really doesn't. It comes from the passion and skill with which it's applied. So that's us as teachers. All right. So that's my little welcome done, and I'm going to pass over to Ben Roos, who teaches maths. So many, not that far away, are you?
Well, I'll say all about it.
You come and tell us all about it. Cool. So I'm going to hand over to Ben. Yeah, thank you very much.
You need to wait until you heard what I'm going to say. That link at the bottom will take you to my set of these slides. I think these have been put into the deck with everyone else's, but it does give you a chance to see the wonderful pictures that I've shared with you. Yeah, my name's Ben Rouse and I am a maths teacher. I used to teach at school in Epsom. I now teach at school just outside of Croydon, 3 days a week. 2 days a week, I'm Technology for Learning Lead. I created that title, obviously, for GLF Schools, a multi-academy trust. And that's really the bit I was going to sort of reflect on today. In the 7 minutes that I've got, so the 7 minutes which, anyone know why it's 7 minutes for a Teach Meet presentation? The time it takes a Scotsman to drink a pint. That's true, genuinely true. So I'll try and be quick. So I lead Technology for Learning, which means I need to work with the schools on, here's the technology you've got, let's try and use it effectively. Or if they decide we're going to buy lots and lots of iPads, then I get to go. Really the technology. But I discovered a little thing called design thinking. Kind of, it's just a little get stuff done. But the principle behind it is that often we've all been in those situations where you jump to ideas without maybe fully understanding the problem you're trying to solve. So it's a process and some activities that allow you to try and dig a bit deeper into what are the problems that you might conceivably want to solve. Because actually I've discovered a little bit more that the technology in the hands of teachers and schools is a bit more effective. They've got some decent problems to solve. How we went about it. Now, I know it's very much the opposite, but you know, it's nice to reflect on it. So there's an example of generally what the process is. So the design thinking process is to empathise, get some ethnographic data and find out, well, what's happening now? What is the current situation? And that can be anything from a class that you're not quite on top of. So you do a few interviews with the students, maybe talk to parents, whatever you can, form tutors, and you try and find out, okay, what's happening now? What are the things that really define that situation? Or we could be talking about large multi-academy trusts who are growing and trying to sort of connect with their schools. And that's the bit I started. So we did a little bit of an immersion process in the multi-academy trust where we tried to look at communication across the schools, because as we get bigger and grow, it was a case of trying to figure out, well, what's it like to communicate with our multi-academy trust? And here's a very quick, genuinely quick example of what happened. It sounds amazing in the music as well. So we had gathered a few people together from the different teams, and we really just went into communication, the pros, the cons. We got it all down on post-it notes, because post-it notes are essential for design thinking, by the way. And then we tried to find themes around it, and themes around this communication. There's a few of the people that joined in. And what happened was that actually we found that there were some key themes, is that every individual department knew how the people should get in contact with them. HR had a system for getting in contact with them. IT had that very different. So that was one of the things we actually discovered through this process, was communication was fine. You knew the process for each one, but it was different. Then there was the case that it wasn't one place to find stuff, and staff really wanted one place to go across all of our different schools to find stuff. And finally, the third thing was the induction process. So if you join a GLF school, what does that really mean? Do you care? How do you know? What information do you get? So that was what came out at the beginning, was rather than just communication, it turned out that we needed to look at induction, we needed to look at what everyone to go and have common ways of contacting. How does this relate to Edtech, I think you think? Well, what it meant was that the tools that I had been suggesting people use, so we went Google, and I've been trying to get people to change the way that they work with some of those tools. Instead of the Word document that's got version 17, 18, 19, can we go to one collaborative document? By looking at this and finding problems, so the solution to the one place to go is we use a Google site that all the staff can go to. You're going to use a Google site, but you might as well have Google Drive things easily embedded into that site. The individuals can change, and you're not really editing a site, you're editing some documents. And with the induction, it's now a Google form where new staff go through the Google form, they get videos and content shared from HR, where they can find out about the multi-academy trust they're joining. So through finding some good problems, use of Google Forms has gone up, so people understand that a lot better. The use of Google Drive is increasing, and people are collaborating and sharing and logging in more often, which is what we want them to do for the collaboration across the multi-academy trust and for in the classroom as well. And we got to use the Google Sites a bit more, and people got a bit more okay with that. So good problem finding turned out to be the best bit of progress I could possibly do. We call it communicate. So when I gathered people together, I gave them cake. It's a wonderful motivator. And these are the things that came out of it. So my pushing of Google that I'd done for so long was actually just down to finding some good problems to solve, and all the tools kind of offered themselves up easily. Is that my time? Just to kind of give you the next stage, so we found some good problems to solve, and we're developing some prototypes around that. Next bit is the selling of it, the what if, and the key part of design thinking is the storytelling. And I think with Edtech, getting people to understand the possibilities is a good story, never does any harm. The bits that we all click on a bit more often if we're looking for things is we want to see that video of the student journey. I want to know what that individual student feels like when they pick up their Chromebook and walk around their school compared to the one picking up a textbook. Is there any difference? Does it matter? And I think the story bit is the bit I'm into next. How can we share the stories of these journeys with Edtech? So the teacher using a little bit of technology for the first time. It's not an accident that Google, when they launched Google Classroom, picked an older, more experienced female teacher for their story, because it wasn't necessarily the expected person we'd want to expect to see using Google Classroom. That story is more interesting and more engaging for us. So that's the what if I'm up now, is about getting into how we share that story of Edtech usage through our classrooms. And we've got some individual pockets of teachers doing some really interesting stuff. Green screening in a primary classroom. We've got Chromebooks going into classrooms, and the kids are starting to collaborate potentially with the other countries. But how do I get that out of those classrooms into more poly-driven story? If you did go into these slides, there's a chance for you to, well, you can make a choice. If you click on the left-hand image, you can go into a very editable and shared document where you can all start to think about your design thinking challenge and problem finding. If you'd rather just do it by yourself, there's the one on the right will force you to make a copy of the document. You can just have it by yourself to do it in the comfort without anyone else staring and watching. And those two documents just take you through a process of how you can start design thinking your challenges, whatever they may be, from that class to the organisation to all sorts of things. So just my journey through it. Design thinking I think works, but I need to get better at doing it. Thank you for listening, and enjoy the rest of the night. Anybody?
Okay, thanks, Ben. So, in the process of doing a talk, I have shared these slides in the drive, and I'll show you where to find those a bit later on. Laura's now going to show us how she's used an iPad in primary setting, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. So she's just going to share some apps with us. The slides will be available.
I'll give myself a little intro while this is working out. I might squeeze an extra 20 seconds. I'm Laura Wall. I'm Laura Teaches on Twitter. I've been a primary teacher around Weald locality schools for about 13 years. Currently doing supply because I fancy seeing the kids a bit more. It's quite nice.
Sorry.
I have worked in schools who've had learn pads and iPads and some of each. And this is just a quick kind of travel through two apps that I've used in primary schools with year R, actually, right up to year 6. and how they could be useful to you. As you said earlier on, Angie, you need to think about how you're going to use them, how it's going to make your teaching better, how it's going to make their learning better. But this is a kind of whistle-stop through those apps. The first one is Book Creator, which is a brilliant, it's really brilliant app for making books. You can make them really simply, where you just literally just make a book where you type your words onto it, and you can keep it simple by changing the colour of the font or changing the colour of the text and adding pictures, or you can add speech, or you can add video. So when the people are reading them, they can listen to it, or you know, it can read to them, or they can take a link to somewhere else. I have 3 vouchers. Book Creator very kindly donates us 3 vouchers for a free download of Book Creator. If you'd like to join in to give away, you just have to, you know, ask me something, and I'll give you one of the amazing 3 vouchers. So this is a little exciting. This is a little one I made up the other day in no time, so it's pretty packed. So you get a front cover, and you can add text and photos. This is really stimulating here. Says this little drop-down menu on this side. You can add text, you can add photos from your iPad or from your LearnPad. It's Android as well. It's really easy to do. I'm not going to show you because it will take too long. Really easy to do. You can resize them, you can move them around, you can change backgrounds. This is now, I need to get rid of that. You can add video and sound. It's really exciting with my child, which should work if I click on it. It's wonderful. Granny was poorly. You can draw on it using a stylus. So if you want your children in reception or year 1 or even up to year 6 to draw pictures directly onto it, they can. Or you can import obviously a picture they've done in another app, do a bit of app smashing. They've changed the way you export this now, so you can export it as a PDF and print it out and have it as, you know, physical paper copy, or you can send it to that was like an iBook, or you can use it on, I can't remember the name of it now, the Android digital book reader that's called, anyone remember? Can't remember what it's called. It's amazing. It's amazing. And so you can see it as well. It's pretty easy to I say it's now, I'm having trouble remembering. It's pretty easy to save it. You just need to make sure that you've got it all saved as the right things with your name. Let me see, is it this one? So you can export it in a number of different ways. For an audience, getting your kids to write an audience for a particular audience, particularly older kids for younger kids, or if you're writing something for somebody that's miles away. We've used it really well for non-fiction texts. These aren't great examples, but they're the only ones I happen to have on here. So there's an amazing book about the stars, made by a child from last year. So they used to explain everything actually to make a little diagram and have imported that picture. Got some writing. This slightly large one. They're great to follow on Twitter because they're constantly sending up new suggestions of ways you can use it and updates. So it can just be a book with loads of writing, or it can be a mixture. It's really brilliant to use. The children, when you tell them you're going to use it, they're so excited, and the writing, this was an interesting class I was working with to do these, but generally their writing improves because they know they're going to have an audience, because they know it's going to be presented as an actual book rather than, you know, just a piece of paper that's going to go in their school book. So it's really brilliant. The other app I wanted to talk to you about is called Simple Minds, and it's a mind mapping app. I don't know if anyone's heard of it. It's a really good mind mapping app. They're not so great to follow on Twitter. You can use it, look just like a mind map, writing what you want, where you want. You can change the different colours. You can reorder things. They've added a new feature into this little checklist. So when you've done something on your list, you can just tick it off. I quite like that. That kind of satisfies me. You can export this. You can send it as a file. You can print it off and put it in your book. This was really useful with our SEN kids who just found the physical writing of a plan took them forever. and actually it makes it easy to see. The colours make your sections easy to follow, sorry, Shipley, you're not on the special list.
Give us a voucher, we'll let you know.
Well done. Now 2 big contributors. So you can reorder things, you can add things onto separate sections, you can move them around. It's amazing. Again, this is just a bit of a gimmick if you just give it to them to use once in a while, but actually when they become really kind of confident with it, it just makes their planning so much easier. Particularly as you're able to edit it without having to cross loads of stuff out, you can just edit it cleanly. There's a paid version and a free version. Paid version is better. It's easier to export from the paid version, but you can always take a screenshot of it that way if you use the free version. They're both really good to use. That's it really. Thanks very much. Any questions? I have to read them because I already own it. Yes, well done.
The book one.
Yes.
And how is that in terms of if you want to do it because I'm a maths teacher, I want to know the equations, or is it better just to scan, like if I wrote it,
Yeah.
just to kind of keep it?
I think typing in equations probably might be beyond it.
Okay.
But taking a photo of it and then editing or annotating around it, you can do that with the pen tool. Very much. One more voucher still open.
One more voucher.
If you fancy the third voucher, do you want to? You can.
Thanks, Laura. Okay, so we've now got a really practical session from Nick Long, who teaches music technology here at the Weald. That's you. That's all you. So you will need to get into your. Just along. Sorry.
So I've been on board with the Google experience since Andy and I started talking about it a couple of years ago, I suppose. I wasn't particularly technologically savvy in my former role as a drummer. I only trained as a teacher 5 years ago, and it was at that point that I realised the potential. So Andy asked me to talk this evening about something that I do. The automated lesson is not the best title for it because it gives you this impression of someone who's just going to sit back, switch stuff on, and let students do stuff. And to some extent, that's true, but the reason I wanted to be able to do that was so that rather than sit back and watch them, I could direct my attention to them straight away. So if you wouldn't mind opening the classroom stream, the stream tab is the left-hand one, which is the default one where it opens. And then open the slides that says Nick's automated lesson. And you should find what a lot of my Key Stage 3, 4, often 5 classes as well will find, which is a very straightforward, boring looking slides presentation. I absolutely loathe it when I sit in a situation like this and somebody reads to me what's up there. Because by the time they're at the end of the first box, I've read it and I want the next bit. So I'm going to leave that up there for a minute. As soon as you've read it, please do go on to slide 2 where it asks you to do something, and you lose points if you do any of it wrong. Once you've done slide 2, if we haven't caught you off yet and you're feeling like you're a bit of a ninja, please do go on to slide 3, and you'll be getting a 7, 8 or 9 GCSE next year. So I mean, the grey box was the critical thing for me. I talked to lots of my classes, and it was very straightforward. What's the best thing about most lessons? What's the worst thing about most lessons? And there was a very strong bias towards you just stop talking. And a lot of the feedback I had as a trainee, and then in my NQT year, was you're waffling. So I had to work out a way to stop. The most important, I think, effect of this is that this is what a student will see when they walk in. So Year 9 music tomorrow have a lesson, a double lesson in the afternoon, and it starts, it says, period 5, please do this. Log in, open these slides, click on this link, watch that video, discuss it in pairs, then pairs develop into a 4, and all of a sudden you're collaborating and doing stuff. Then I'll stop them, having wandered around checking the register, and we'll have a discussion. And what I've done there, what happens there is we're gaining maybe a lost 5 minutes. My route's over there, which is right on the far edge of the site. So people legitimately are 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes late, depending on what they've come from, even if they've been let out on time. And by doing something like this, we don't lose that time. I don't have to repeat myself. So when you get on to slide 2, what I'd like everybody to do, if you could please, is to insert a text box. Now you should have editing rights on this. So you should be able to click File, Insert, and add a text box. That's not a live version of the slide, so you'll be seeing a lot more than is on that slide. But we'll get a live version of the slide and we'll see if there's some discussion points on there. In a class setting, as it says, this could be for absolutely anything. There's an example later on, or I think a linked example later on, of some year 10s giving feedback to each other on their work. And I said, well, make a slide, write your feedback, comment on your feedback, open a dialogue. And again, it's about engaging and students doing stuff. Don't be offended by the fact that no one's looking at me. I'm used to that. I get that all day. Once you've done slide 3, I'm going to give you a couple of minutes while I wander around seeing what's on slide 3 to have a look at some of the links that are on the next one. Slides 4 or 5, as it says, there's a couple of examples of what a student might see on entering a lesson. They're both real ones that have happened fairly recently. Just tell you what it is and what we're going to be looking at. And I really would just invite you just to spend a minute or two clicking on them, seeing what you can see, and whether or not you think there's anything for you. Probably that one on the screen while I wander around and see if anybody's doing it. Because this is what I would do. What you're actually doing is being in one of these automated lessons. I will give prizes of something if anyone can come up with anything for it over. Yeah. Are you looking at it? Oh, that's it there. There you are. And just type to your heart content. If you hit on one of the Google Classroom examples that are on this slide, you'll need a classroom code. Please feel free to add as a student. There's no obligation to remain a student unless you really fancy getting level 3 things if you use the technology. So in front of you, one example. This was my personal favourite because it made year 11 actually do some work in one of their lessons for one day last term. And as I say, this is what that was the entire lesson. The point being that I knew full well a couple of them were going to come in 20 minutes late from the mark. So you've got to give them a fighting chance. But they've still got to achieve the same end result. This was collecting coursework. And each of the hyperlinks took them to an assignment on Google Classroom to make sure that you're putting the right work in the right place. Because my biggest problem with year 11 is they say, I've given you it. Where? I don't know. You've had it somewhere. And recently, the last thing I'll witter about is the idea of Easter eggs. I've looked at anything on DVDs, computer games, the like. So I simply made one. I thought, why not? Let's give them some incentive to actually do some of this, what I'm asking you to do. Get engaged, move forward through the slides, get ahead of the next people, and actually see what you can find out for yourself. So we're encouraging independence as well as a slightly more inquisitive approach, perhaps, to the students' own learning. That's the key aim, is to get them thinking about what they can do to further their learning, and to stop being the idiot at the front, just whittering at them because they really don't like it. The last thing, as you have seen from previous slides, the feedback, the comments on students' feedback, students commenting on the comments on their feedback, and then commenting on that and developing a discussion through it is a really key part of how this has been working in my classroom. Feedback is critical, so as it says, please do something. You'll have access to this for as long as it remains open, so I'll leave it to you. It's not brilliant. It hasn't happened perfectly overnight, and I still get suggestions every day from students as to how I can make it less boring, sir. So if you've got any of those, please thank you.
Thanks, Nick. So the automated lessons, these are new titles. So moving on to the new titles, I'm sure Nick will have a prize of some sort. It might be some drumming lessons. But I'm sure Nick will give you a better prize if some sort of prize if actually come up with a better name than the automated lessons, because he doesn't like that, as he said. Okay, so this is Jem. So we're moving on to our keynote from Google. So Google, Jem's going to come and talk to you about the next 20 minutes, I think, for the keynote. Yeah. You want to bring that down? You don't want to come off? Sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Jem.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Let's get pumped up. You know, I know it's dreary outside, but and it's really cold, but I need to get excited. Yeah? They're like, okay. So my name is Jem, and I work on the Google for Education team based in London. I've been on the education team for about 5 years now, but I focus on the Sub-Saharan Africa region, on higher adoption in the higher ed space, and then creating the Google Educator groups in South Africa. So I just moved to the UK. It's been a little over a year and a half now, so really glad to be here. And I'm originally from Boston, so that's why I sound different. So I've been around. So I'd like to start, I'd like to make my sessions really interactive. So don't be shy, please, participate. So this goes as well as I planned. All right, so.
You know you're in England, right?
Oh, man. Sorry to warm people up. All right, so we have 2 questions here. I'd like you to work with your table or work with your neighbor. So what is technology's role in teaching and learning? And what makes transforming with technology difficult? So I want you to have many conversations, and then we'll come back to the front, and then everyone will share their ideas. So I'll give you 2 minutes. Thank Okay, you ready? Oh, you're not ready. I'm still talking. Okay, 30 more seconds. 30 more seconds. So, So can I have 1 or 2, actually 2 tables to volunteer for question 1?
Was it for technology for teaching and learning? Is obviously part of what we do is that get students ready for the world outside of work, and you may be a job that doesn't have technology involved in some way. So that's a key for us.
Awesome, and we'll delve into that next. Actually, the next slide.
And also we were saying about time, actually, how kids teach time very different. You get to that second part about stressful and technical difficulties, teachers having the time and confidence to do it. And those two things are,
Hand in hand.
you ask any teacher what they're more wrong, it's usually time.
Next table, anyone?
We talked about transformation and the difficulty, like I said, time, but also training and resources, awareness, so teaching things that schools.
When you say resources,
Well, that's my purchasing, what you need to use in terms of some of the apps and some of the,
When you learn how to design after 3 years. What do you do then?
sorry?
It's kind of when when the technology comes to the end of its life.
Yes.
When what we're, what do we do now? We all need to learn a new thing.
With the role of technology, we're saying it's to allow the students to become more independent and self-driven. So we should give them, this is how you do it, and it might be, I'm thinking of a mathematical computer. There might be several different methods which they can use. But I will have a preferred method which I would say, this is a good one. I like this one. This one will get you an answer straight away, sort of thing. And they might prefer something else, and although I can explain them, because of my experience, I will be pushed towards one, whereas if they've got technology, they can access that straight away. I don't like certain methods. There's another method I can use, they can jump straight on, and they can do that themselves without saying, can I have a textbook? Not a textbook, that's your textbook, you need something else they can access beyond my knowledge.
Right. Does that, so now that you know that they have access to, let's say, the internet, and you're teaching them a certain way, does that change the way you deliver your lesson? Because you know they can just look it up.
See, I do like to kind of, I will always been saying, there is this method, and I will kind of say my method, or quite often I've sent them off to just find something out and go away and find the method that they are most comfortable with, and then bring it back and then talk as a group rather than me saying, this is the rule I want you to use. So they kind of go find information for themselves and bring it back.
So we touched a little bit on what makes transforming with technology difficult, and that table over there mentioned resources. We have one other table, discuss the last question.
Yeah, okay, basically we were saying that it comes back down to, you got to remember it's after technology, it comes down to what do you do with it?
Right.
Not having training in place before the kids got it, or having enough time to work out how it's going to benefit you rather than taking more time to do so. So we had an example which was doing a Kahoot quiz or something, kids get out their phones and they log in. By the time they logged in, you've lost 2 or 3 minutes, they picked a stupid name, you have no idea who's who. And actually, okay, so you might get, if you want to pick each question as you go along, you can the pedagogy's not too bad. It's that 3 or 4 minutes that you wasted getting to a bit where, you could easily whiteboard with a pen and be started right at the top. So that's what we were talking about. So having activities or plans on how to use technology so that it improves education and having the time to learn how to do it.
Okay, great. So we all know and we agree that the world is changing. And so the World Economic Forum recently published a report called The Future of Jobs. And so we're on the cusp of the fourth industrial revolution. And can anyone take a guess at what that means for us? So that would mean a lot of things are being automated. Sorry about the automated lesson. Yeah. And then machine learning jobs that we're doing today they're just going to get to another level. So I had an example. I was talking about this slide actually earlier today with a colleague, and she didn't understand how this would relate to teaching. And so I said, imagine if you're at a Tesco and they created those, self-serve checkout counters. A lot of people think, oh, we're losing jobs. Like, what are people going to do these days? But you need students who are going to be able to create those self-serve counters and the technology that it needs to help those run. So even if you had an entire store where you don't have a single person in it checking people out, there are people that need to be able to create those checkout counters. So how do we get students ready for jobs like that? So automated jobs and technology-driven jobs. And jobs that we do today, whether it's sales or management, there are parts of technology that help drive that, and we need to make sure our students are prepared. So here's some of the data. I mentioned a couple of the roles. So we all know that this is going to happen, but are any of you surprised that these are the number of jobs that are going to come out by 2020? And of those 19 countries, the UK is one of them. And so do you think that these numbers are real? Do you think that we're preparing our students for these types of jobs? Question to the crowd.
Two things that you said, are these things through? Probably yes, I would prepare them correctly for them. Maybe not.
Okay. So what do you think are the types of skills required for some of these jobs, both old and new occupations that are going to come out? I'd like you to take a guess at maybe the top 3 of some of the skills that we're going to need in the workplace. I don't have any prizes though, sorry. You know, I mean, you guys got Google Cardboard in your bags, right?
Yeah.
That was me. As you can see, the top 3, problem solving, teamworking, and communication. We commissioned the Economist Intelligence Unit to survey business leaders, young students, and teachers of what they feel the top skills are in the workplace. And to see those 3, can you guys think about some of your lessons and what's being taught in your schools as to whether these 3 are the experience is actually happening in your school? Are your students problem solving? Are they working together in groups? And what are their communication skills like? Can someone give me an example of maybe a lesson that they're doing right now that would tackle one or all 3 of those problems?
Yeah, we could have a team building session in our achievement mind that happens in 3 times.
Great.
Solve problems with different problems.
Oh, that's good. That's good. One more? You know what, Andy, might as well. Are you doing this in your classroom?
Problem solving, yeah. I mean, so I teach maths, and the new GCSE syllabus has become very, very much problem solving based. So the questions are no longer straightforward and simple. So my top sets that I teach, I'm really lucky with my year 9 and 10, I have top sets, and they're really bright, they're really, really bright kids. And you say to them, simplify this equation, solve for X. And they can do it, no problem. Give them 100 questions, they'll get 95, 98, 96, whatever. Correct. However, if I give them a problem out of a puzzle book, so a riddle, they don't know where to start. So in my classroom now, every lesson there's something on the board that is a puzzle. And they've got to understand the English, that comes down to the communication. They've got to understand what's being communicated to them. And then the problem solving comes and they go, and actually stay still, they come in and they haven't got a clue. So parents evening, which was recently, I said to all the parents in my year 10, get a puzzle book. Here's a suggestion, I suggested Johnny Ball puzzle book. And they're now learning about problem solving. But they do it in a group, they do it together. But otherwise, they really don't have a clue and they don't like them. They come in and they go, oh, not another puzzle, I'm really, they're scared. But you give them 100 questions about rearranging the most complicated bit of algebra you can find, and they'll battle through it. The second you take it away and give them a problem to solve as opposed to just regurgitating a ball, that's what they're not preparing for. So I'm doing my little bit at the start of the lesson, but it is completely driven by the curriculum at the moment.
So this is our wheel that we got from UNESCO, and it's the wheel we use to help schools decide how they want to bring technology in to specifically impact student learning. And like I said, my sessions are very interactive. So can someone tell me the first approach they would look out for or work on when they're bringing technology into the classroom? So senior leaders, what's the first thing you would do?
bringing technology into the
Yes, I'm looking at you.
So you've got to make sure, I guess, it's infrastructure that's going to work. We probably have to think about what impact that's going to have on the students. So there's actually is going to be students rather than the time.
So if you're looking at the infrastructure first, you don't have, what about your vision?
Yeah.
Is that something that you want to, you need to know what type, like, what type of infrastructure to work on?
So I guess, yeah. So you start with what you want the students to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Cool. Anyone else? You think culture?
Is, you know, if you people need to know how to use it, and if you're going to buy, say, a whole load of learn pads, sorry, I've really not got to
It's okay.
you know, you buy a whole load of learn pads and they sit in a cupboard because everyone, you might have shown everyone how wonderful they can be, but no one's really bothered to use them because it involves extra time and thinking, and so you know you need to think about the time you're going to invest in people learning the new stuff, and then kind of getting that culture of using it, and it not just sitting in a box.
Definitely. A lot of people forget about the culture or the learning approach. For me, that goes hand in hand with your vision and leadership. So getting that group or committee of people together when you're deciding on what the plan is when you're bringing technology, despite whatever it is, just making sure that you're tackling all of these within that committee so that you're able to make sure you're impacting student learning in the proper way, and then you don't want to, like someone said earlier about the technology coming end of life. So you really got to think far and wide and making sure that at the end of the day, that learning approach or that culture is something that will stay throughout. And making sure that vision is something you keep reminding yourselves of when you're bringing the technology. And then at the end, you pick what technology am I bringing.
But you know what? That is right, but it doesn't happen very much, I think.
Yeah, I've noticed.
I feel more often there is the technology is brought in first, and then there's a look at, hey, what should we do with this now? And a number of the schools I work with are at that stage where I don't get brought in to necessarily talk about their vision going forward. I get brought in to look at a pile of technology that they haven't really used as they've built anyway, and sort of backfill. It often seems to be different, and that culture, and that changing the curriculum, looking at things entirely differently, is a challenge, which is part of why I went to start thinking about and unstripping it before you start having technology.
So do you think every, let's say, SLT or committee needs to go through a design thinking?
Not necessarily. I'd go further than Ben. I'd say if you don't start with the SLT having the vision of what you're trying to achieve and why, then you might as well not bother. And if they don't walk the walk and actually embrace that vision and execute it in their own practice, then they're giving other people the message that it's okay not to participate. You get that passive resistance that brings down a lot of projects like this. So you have to have that clear vision from the outset about, you know, why would we do some of these things? It's not about the tools. That's the easy bit. It's about the culture being a culture of constant learning of new things and approaches, which is hard in particular for secondaries, I think. It's easier in primary.
Do you think it's still therefore always going to be top down? Like you can't work.
No, it needs to be both. In fact, it needs to be both top down and grassroots. If it's only grassroots, you end up with an oasis of good practice in one classroom. And that, particularly for collaborative tools like we're discussing this evening, that misses the huge potential of working in a collaborative way. So you'll end up with teachers doing excellent things in their own isolated universe of the classroom.
Yeah.
And if you're talking about teamwork, collaboration and teamwork at the whole school level, I think you have to have some direction from above as well.
Yeah. You have the vision, the idea. So then
They need to drive it. even if they delegate to other people to make this happen, so.
And for the culture bit. So when I mentioned the word committee, so you have your SLT and then members of the teaching staff need to be a part of that group that's making the decision. So they bring in all ideas and survey the rest of the teachers as to what they're hoping to achieve. So just creating a culture of, for example, our Google educator groups or different groups that you have around certain technologies to be able to also help with that PD side and ongoing training. So there needs to be a member of the teaching staff on that committee. And then they're the ones that are going to be that champion to drive the culture change. Even if SLT, they get it, they want to do it, they have other things to worry about after a certain time. You want someone that's going to continue to drive that culture.
There's a reasonable example, or in my opinion, of what I've seen, Upfield, community, etc.
UCTC.
Yeah, where it was very much a decision from SLT to go down the one-to-one Chromebook. But they leveraged, as I understand it, they asked staff to say how confident they were with technology, and the group that said they had no confidence whatsoever were given the role of showing everyone else how to use the technology after having had a lot of time put into supporting them with that. So initially they were pretty what, but they were given time. They were given time. So that was the closest I've seen of a combination of the school vision and then using on the ground teachers in classrooms to grow it.
Yeah. Another example of that is Tring School, large secondary school, and they had one of their teachers actually drive the change and make a case for going Google or bringing in Chromebooks into the classroom. And his document was really comprehensive in surveying all the teachers, and he did the pilot on his own and was able to present that back and then got SLT buy-in that way. And once he did that, he got other teachers on board to become that advocate for change.
I think it's a great idea to include non-technical people in that team. The tech-savvy ones, the geeks, are always going to be keen to
Early adopters.
But sometimes it's counterproductive. If it just becomes, there's another geek thing happening. If I keep quiet, perhaps it'll
go away.
Whereas if you get, I'm sorry, but I was at this shorthand. I always call these people Marjorie. If you involve Marjorie, who is probably an excellent teacher and maybe just scared silly of technology, and once she gets over that, he or she, I should say, gets over that fear, they can be a great ambassador for the change.
So take these 3 P's away: planning, professional development, and patience, so that people like Marjorie can get on board.
She's not.
No, she's not Marjorie, but we use this picture a lot, even in our internal meetings, because it's really important. If she can get it, so can you. So we know that technology is not the end-all, be-all, and what we do is we want to make sure that we're committed to education and committed to making sure that we've got our part right, so the technology works. But it's also up to you and to be able to look at different ways you can use the technology to enhance your existing curriculum and make it work for you. So in a way, we can work on things that are more important. So we don't want to see technology as a roadblock, but more of a catalyst to help drive change. Is anyone already aware of the Google solution? Oh, one person. Oh. Okay, this is good. Because usually when I go to a session, it's like, yeah. No, but this is good. All right. So Chromebooks for education. You know what? G Suite. Gmail? Okay. All right, this is going to be great. So I'm just going to breeze through, but then feel free, obviously you're using Chromebooks right now. But feel free to ask questions during the networking session as well, just so that we can save some time. So what we want to do is bring the best of Google into the classroom. So our solution is around devices make sure they're fast, durable, scalable. G Suite is our collaboration suite of tools. We have content that you can start using on your Chromebook today, and then the professional development piece, which is really key to make sure that your teachers are confident and prepared. So how do we maximize student success and help every student succeed? G Suite is our great collaboration tool, and you're able to make sure that you communicate with students, staff, teachers on one central platform, and then make sure that you can work on documents together, collaborate together, and then in the middle is our Google Classroom, which is what we call our mission control for teachers to utilize all these tools in one central location. And so a lot of these guys, Ollie, and then who else is presenting? Mark. They're gonna dig a little deeper into this. But these are our tools. And anyone recognize any other icon other than Gmail? Okay. Great. So we have our versions. We have slides, docs, sheets, Drive, which is where your storage is unlimited. Unlimited storage for educational institutions. We make businesses pay for it, so you guys are lucky. And it's a free platform. So Chromebooks, how can I provide best-in-class technology despite our limited resources? We talked about that earlier. So Chromebooks are what you see on your tables today, range of prices, but they're really affordable. And we like to use the example, if you get a class set, and you have a class set of 30 sharing it out, think of how many students that you can reach, because every unique account, no matter when they log in, it's like it's their own. So it's a great way to scale technology on limited resources. How many of you attended BET? Oh, so everyone was there. And did you stop at the Google stand? Yeah. Yeah, he was running sessions throughout for what? All 4 days?
4 days.
4 days. Wow. He was doing hands-on sessions for classes.
Yeah.
Or informed. So we just there are 9 new devices from all the major OEMs. And so we've tried, a lot of the OEMs are looking at that Flip 360 form factor. You can see the Asus Flips today. Do you have the big one with you? Yeah, there's 2 around. So that's the trend that's going on these days, and making sure that no matter how you want to use it, if you want to use a tablet factor or as a laptop, a lot of the Chromebooks or the OEMs are developing for that new range and versatility. So right now, it's the fastest growing device category in the UK. So a lot of schools are seeing the uniqueness and the interest and the affordability of Chromebooks. Does anyone know where that number 30,000 comes from? 30,000 Chromebooks activated GPU. That's actually in the US right now. In the US, it's over over 60% of schools are using Chromebooks in the classroom. And it all started off from assessments, being able to do online assessments, and now they're developing different ways of using it. Using it. No worries. Now that schools and large districts are developing ways of using their existing curriculum and delivering it through Chromebooks. So that's really great when we talk into the management side. So you have a district of 100,000 students, and they have a central IT team from the district level, and they're managing all of their Chromebooks from a central location.
There's a key benefit with Chromebooks as well, which sometimes gets lost, because there are a lot of case studies that talk about one-to-one schemes where every student has a device. Mm-hmm. But particularly in the primary sector, again, a lot of schools here don't have that kind of cash. And the Chromebook has a huge advantage in that it's a completely anonymous device. So if a year 3 kid opens up a Chromebook and signs in, looks at their picture, puts in a password and is in, and then they close the lid and the teacher opens it, it's a different device. Everybody who uses it, it becomes theirs for the duration. And it gives them a way to get to their stuff which lives in the cloud. So you don't need to have one-to-one for this stuff to be really, really useful. In that way, it's different from tablets as well. You don't have the issue of managing them with multiple login identities.
Interest of time. So how do we manage? So we just talked about the device management side. IT admins. Anyone here that? Hey. Great. So being able to manage from a central location and just making sure there's over 150 different ways you can manage a Chromebook. And it just enforces your user settings that you have set up for your accounts, and just making sure that the students are safe in a walled garden domain and environment. So especially if like a Chromebook is stolen or it's lost, you're able to recover that again from the admin side. And then none of the troubleshooting from teachers, like I can't do this or I need to do that. Giving admin rights to a couple of teachers here and there to be able to push out different apps and be able to manage their classroom in that way also gives the teacher a bit more control and empowerment over the devices. And what's really great is you don't need to worry about viruses or malware or anything like that, because again, you're not really storing anything. So again, we talked about budgets and end of life. You're only operating on the Chrome OS, right? So every time we update it, whether it's 6 to 8 weeks, no matter how old your Chrome is, you still have the same version as someone's shiny brand new, I don't know, HP device. So this is an interesting quote from AET, one of the largest multi-academy trusts. So again, we don't like reading things, so I'll let you guys read that. But it's really good that they took the time to think about the cost savings when it comes to bringing in devices. And they use G Suite from top level domain, and they have all of their schools underneath as secondary domain, and given admin rights to all the IT managers for those schools. So content, which is it's not really new for us, but we're working on making it better so that it integrates well with G Suite. So now you can get a little bit more creative. If you want to learn a bit more, talk to XMA. But we have this bundle right now with Read Video, Soundtrack, and Explain Everything. I know you mentioned Explain Everything earlier today, so it's really good that now you can start getting creative Chromebook. Android apps on Chrome. We heard about that buzzing a little bit for those who went to bed and actually came to the Google stand. Anyone know what that means? It opens a whole brand new world. So there's over millions of apps, Android apps that are available. And now they're bringing them to Chromebooks so that all of the Android apps that you're used to, instead of buying Android tablets, you can now get certain types of Chromebooks to be able to have access to all of that and continue your lessons that way. So this is great. And the Adobe version that's come out is free for school. And that would work well on the Chromebook. So we have a list, public list of what Chromebooks these will work on. Right now there's 3. So the Acer R11 and then the Asus Flip that you see them in, the shiny, nice Google Pixel, which schools don't look at. Right. I mean, I would do it. Chromebooks by the end of 2017 that will also have this available. So you can start thinking about future-proofing your Chromebook so that, especially if you're looking at pilot kits, so that it is able to run Android apps as well. So support, you're not alone. Oh, everyone's like, how do we do this, right? So you have your partners, you have 24/7 support. Trust me, you can pick up the phone and call someone if you get stuck anywhere. Teachers, you're not alone. Our training center, and has anyone gone through it at all? Yes, we hope, right? But yeah, so we have educator level 1, 2, then we have training programs, and then our innovation program that Mark is a part of, where you get to really explore and get creative with your Google tools. And then finally, Transformation Center for School Leaders. So that's at a high level for those who are overseeing a large number of students, large number of schools. So breeze through this. I think we're ready. Yeah, so I talked about courses, certification, communities, the Google Educator Group. That's the grassroots part of it, and we make sure that the GEG in the UK, anyone who reaches out to that forum, you have teachers willing to help each other out and jump on and answer any questions. All right, so great way to get started. Speak to XMA if you're interested in, testing and looking at Chromebooks for your school. G Suite, you can sign up on your own and also get that sorted. Benefit, which is really great, portable, versatile, which is key. So like Mark said, it's just a class at primary school setting. It's like your own. You sign in, every student feels like it's their own device. So I want to task you, give you some homework, as Andy said, you guys are students today. So get to know Google for Education. I want you guys to type this into your browser. Right? And this is 45 ways to use Google in the classroom. For those who haven't started, take a look at some of the scenarios and see some of the apps and the tools that we have for you. And just play around with it. See if it's something that meets your needs. And then there are also some bonus slides at the end for different apps that aren't for Google apps. So thank you. That's it for me.
Thanks, Em. So we're going to have a look at this. Run some cup of tea, some biscuits, stretch your legs. If anyone needs the toilet, you just go to the end here and turn left. You'll see our not quite world famous Superloos, but they are certainly within the realms of West Sussex. They are Superloos. So certainly, if you go to the end and turn left, you'll see the toilets on left. Otherwise, we've got 2 biscuits here. We're going to have a break. Please have a chat to some of the other guys around. If you want to speak to any of the speakers so far, then obviously grab them and have a chat. Yeah, we'll take about 10 minutes. We'll have a 10-minute break. So please That was a bit on the spot. No, I haven't. No, I do not. You warm by the earth. Choose which one you want. Yeah, one more picture. And hold close.
Yeah, 50% off.
Transition. It's quite cool. All their technical modes, spending hours a day just they brought
Yeah, well,
it's car, it's very fast. Oh, I see. It's using a slide.
Classic.
Very important thing to read. Draw the line.
I can't show you here, but there's really
Basically, just building it up. I mean, so that's the entrance. Then the sanitation.
It'd be great.
All the blocks to do motors,
Yeah.
We do. That shipping.
Yeah, that's great.
So again, it's some of the elements.
Edtech is a lot more advanced than
Note the colour on the dot
covers
studies.
and it's just based on unit 10. Where I'm
I like the simple modular. Yeah. I think that Did you create this? But I've got to do it. Screen up. The other stuff is
I've had a few messages saying my feed's working perfectly, just a few messages.
Oh, it's the sound of it. Okay. I was thinking something. I don't know about.
I'm on my way to Europe. And then we got Tim this evening doing the cover into all
I am on the skills.
Most people are things are
And then how 10 meters. 10 meters, yeah. So based on the Bluetooth. These things are communicating. So they're going back via Bluetooth to the computer, and then the other device. Exactly. They go direct. Yeah, you look on your Bluetooth here. So when I press that button, that message sends. Press it again. Again. There you go. Thank you. Sorry. And okay, so it's kind of like the yeah. I mean, obviously, I'm not saying it's the same, but no, it's the same. Exactly. Right. Yeah. It's new stuff. Yeah, that's like it's very true. No, you don't need to. This has got
obviously you can't find it, that's great, but we love this, got to find some guests, tag that's fine. Yeah, we're running also exhibition. Time and place. Okay, we're running exhibitions. Yeah, I started to get especially biology. Yeah, so we're just releasing this thing in the US. Yeah, about the pictures. Yeah, true. So I'll focus on actually starting science. Yeah, sometimes. Using our passive And so with the kids to be able to do, they have this on their program, they do this. So would this be, we work on so they can do it all the time. Yes. Yeah, this is Sam. Yeah. Designing it on the screen and then seeing the this one is accelerator steering. This one's got reverse and it's something quite empowering about the 30 seconds. This is process room as well. Processes, problem solving, design engineering. There was no variation for six.
One bit I suppose is just the code behind it. It's again it's a programming language which for GCSE computer science. So what's it? Yeah, what you need to do now is recording, other practical do where it was so much more easy they were able to get data, get something that work that's automated. At the moment, it's still someone there with a stopwatch and someone there writing down, and you just think, why are we still doing this? We could be, we could be investigating so much more in terms of that aspect. And then, like I said, the problem right now, the lesson's not here, I'm giving you different sides of the parachute, you go away and tell me yourself. It's you go away and find out, use these tools, and it becomes more of a problem-based learning. We're going to start in the second half. It's so much better. Really, really would. And like, it's massive, particularly data visualization. So what we did was take two of these cards, link them both to Twitter. So you can move the card forward. Yeah, so it helps data visualize. Sorry, ladies and gents, we're gonna get started again. A little bit behind. During the second half, I have got a call coming in, a video call coming in from a teacher in America, so my session's going to get shrunk a little bit. Right. But Brett and I, we work together, and I'll share that with you. We're going to go on an expedition with Ollie in a second. Ollie is still teaching. Just about. So Ollie's still teaching. He's going to take us on an expedition, which is why I've given you a second cardboard with a phone in it. Okay, so you don't need to use the ones in your bag. You can take those with you. What about 10 to 2? We're going to hear something weird. And an American teacher is going to join us from Missouri. It'll be exciting. Quite exciting. Okay, cool. Ollie, over to you.
Thanks very much. So as Andy said, I am still teaching 2 days a week, thing on, and I teach maths and science to a group of 15 special needs students, and we're one-to-one programs, and as a result, we get to try some really cool stuff out. So expeditions, hands up who has actually used it for expeditions? A few people in the room. I think they came here today, is that right? So they're unbelievable. It's really cool tools, but again, it's one of those things where it is just a tool. You can kind of do this in a lesson, and after you've been through a few of them, you might find you're a bit exhausted, and actually, there's not much learning happening. So the way I like to be using this stuff is like anything, it's an add-on to the good teaching you're doing. Right? So what I'm going to show you today is you will have a look through your view. You should see we're in one called Aurora Borealis, and what's quite cool is as a teacher, if I've got the teacher app here, I don't actually know anything about Aurora Borealis. I can click on these things and directly look at the solar wind. And I'll tell you, it takes around 4 minutes to read told that. I trust Google, it's pretty good at kind of searching, accruing all this great information, and you're getting sorted there. I can again take you all to have a look at Earth's magnetic field, I've got pointed here. On my screen, I've got all these lovely smiley faces telling you where everything is, which is quite cool. But again, this might work nicely for maybe 10 or 15 minutes of the lesson, all right? which is cool, it's good fun. But then if you take this out again, they've got 4 lessons. That's where you've got to start thinking, right, this is a tool that I can incorporate and enhance my already teaching. So I'm going to give a very quick, at most, 10-minute demo for a lesson that I ran with my kids about space. So, what is this and where is it? Hands up. Yes. Awesome. International Space Station. Where is it? Space. We're going to try and get a bit more specific because I'm going to start there. So think about where is it in space. I think this is working. So, this is the launch of the Zarya control module, right? And so we're talking about space launch and stuff on it. So we might start our lesson thinking about, okay, how does that work? So you guys will take the classroom now. Right? So in your Google Classroom, if you refresh the screen, I will show you the kind of template document that we use in our class and how you might think about using expeditions in that. You'll notice that at the minute we've not touched expeditions for this class. So which is an important comment. So you should find on your classroom, you have a science expedition class. I'd like to open that up as I go through this. We talked about the thrust and the weight. So which forces are acting on the space station? Right. And so we maybe talk about this for a bit longer. We don't have time to do too much. We've got these 3 things here, and I'd like you to talk about which of these represents 3 different points of that space. So which of these represents kind of that initial liftoff, which represents as it's going through space, and which is when it almost out of atmosphere. All right. So task 1, what you have in your Google Slides, and I think it's on slide 2, is a little matchup. All right. And I'm going to give you guys maybe 30 seconds to do the best of this. So instead of me having to give out a worksheet, you guys will then cut and paste. And we end up with loads of paper on the floor. Cleaners are your worst enemy at the end of the day. We've got all of that and just made it into a Google slide. So you can drag these pictures into the right order. You can move that around. Silently, people are either really bored or working really hard. I'm never sure. In a classroom, I'll assume it's a good thing. You're all working quite hard. So this is one idea of how you might use it in class. I'm not actually going to check your work here, so I should have said that again, but you get the idea. So this is Google Slides, and it's obviously a 3-part Google Drive, so kind of pretty easy for education. And what I did through Classroom is the same thing that I think it's before. You've all got your own copy of the same document. All right. So you guys are finishing off, I'm going to show you a picture I showed you, a video, sorry, about how the International Space Station is assembled. And so we kind of start thinking about this. So do you think it was just all lifted up in one go, and then it was just done in space? So we actually talk about the logic and the implications of getting stuff in space. And it's actually through loads and loads of smaller modules which are put up there and built together. For students, it's quite nice for them to think about it. It's kind of like a big Lego thing happening in the orbit. So we watch this video, and then what we do is we then start looking at expeditions. So at this point, this is where I take you guys to the Zarya cargo slot. So if you guys open up your put your expeditions on there. This is the first time in the lesson, so we're probably about 20-25 minutes in. We are now in the Zarya functional cargo slot, and this was the first module for the ISS. This was the first one. And so what I do is I then ask them to write down as many words as you can to write down. And then number 2 is my favourite bit. I would like everyone now to just look which way they think is up. So can everyone look at which way they think is up? Look up. And when you've done that, when you think you're looking up, you just put your hand up. When you think you're looking up, just put your hand up. Keep looking, keep looking. And at that point, I am going to pause. All right, so pause on your screen. And so what I would do is I would display this on my screen, putting up words here, and I'd be able to show the students where we're looking, right? So everyone, as you probably imagine, is all looking at different points. And we start thinking, okay, why can we not tell which way is up? And why does it matter? So why is everything tied down? What do you think, guys? Why is everything tied down? Because there's no gravity? Is there no gravity? A little bit. So that's what we call microgravity. So we kind of talk about that, say which force is different in space. You guys are obviously professionals, you know what's going on. Then I've got another little bit. This is quite a nice one. Do we have time for this one? Yeah, it goes down. So he goes into talking about like different stuff that's different in space and stuff that kids probably haven't considered, such as going to the toilet. And he explains that process and how that works, which is quite nice. And then he goes and looks at how they go and have dinner and how it's all tied down and why is it all tied down. And then so that would take another sort of 3 or 4 minutes. I'm not sure it's really. He's talking about sleeping, and so they can't sleep in bed, so they kind of eat. I'm actually it's next slide very quickly. So then what we would do is we then look at another expedition. So on this, all I have to do to go to a different expedition, so I just kind of slides. We have these different slides here. And let's go into this one here. So again, we're in a different venue. I press play, and it's all in a very different scene. So we're in that Zvezda service module. And so I'd ask questions like how and why is astronauts going to take a difference to one US or a regular? And why does astronauts' hair stand up? Okay, which way? And then we go and have a look at those. And we might ask a question. There's 3 different ways the astronauts prevent objects from floating around in these modules. And so they have to have a look. So instead of just going on an expedition and letting them have a look around and saying, oh, we're actually tying all this stuff into stuff that we're going to do. All right. And then I finish off the lesson with quite an open-ended task. And you guys can see on your Google slide. So the last task is to draw a design for an everyday item that's to be used in the ISS. And so you end up with kids hairbrushes, hair drugs, that kind of stuff. Those are cool things, and just an open-ended task. So we've actually only been through kind of 4 of these slides. We've used it to enhance the learning, actually take kids out of their comfort zone and put them in someone else's shoes. So that was a really quick run through for expeditions. I don't want to spend any more time on it, but I will go over there later and come and have a chat to me about Schools Smart Clouds. And if you want, we'll run through it to you at 8 o'clock. That's fine.
Yeah, it's all
Perfect. So I'll pass over. Who's next? Is it Mark, isn't it?
Mark. Tell you, Mark.
I want to kind of just go back over some of the things that Ben and Jem were saying earlier, just to stress a few things, and then after I've waffled on about it for a few minutes, we'll actually dive in and get you doing some stuff as well. But can I just check that? Is this true? Who's using Google, what we used to call Google Apps, and we now call G Suite for education in their school? Just right, so half of you, which means that half of you are not, all right? Yeah. And who's primary here? Okay. The thing that I think needs to be stressed all the time about something like G Suite for education is that word suite. So the reason that they changed the name, they did this in their work initiative as well, is that it is an ecosystem of connected parts. And you can become expert in any single tool, but it's much more powerful when you start to throw these things together and link them together. I wanted to show you in the examples ways in which you can use this platform of connected interlocking parts to create things that are more than the sum of those parts. So the way I like to think of schools is that it's a school is a collection of communities of interest, really. You've got people who share the same interest. That could be a specific lesson in class, but thinking of it at the school level, it's also the governing body of trustees. It's also the parent body. And all of these different communities of interest, they need to communicate with each other and exchange information. So a few years ago, I mean, just as an introduction, I'm Mark Allen, by the way, on Twitter, I'm in clouds, and I've been helping schools move to cloud-based technology in general, and Google's toolset in particular for over 10 years now. My first Google school was 2006. So I've worked with hundreds of schools, and some of those projects have worked spectacularly well, and some spectacularly badly. And you know, they haven't all been rip-roaring successes. I wish they had. But a couple of years ago, I started to consider, well, what is it that makes these projects work? But the ones that fail don't quite deliver what they might. Why is that? Can I in fact learn from my own experience? And that's why I was so hot earlier talking about the buy-in from the leadership as a for a successful project in this. The leadership needs to understand why you're doing this and what you're hoping to get out of it. And those things might be quite prosaic. It might be that the school has to save money. That's a good reason. I mean, all schools need to do loaves and fishes tricks now. You need to do more with less year on year on year. Whatever you do this year, you're going to need to do more with less in the way of resources next year. And I think that's probably the situation we've got for the next 5 or 10 years at least. So we're having to do miracles with restricted budgets. But it could be that you want everybody to work smarter. That also is a byproduct of moving to the cloud. It improves every single person's CV, but it means that collectively you work in a lot more joined up and intelligent way. And then the last outcome might be that you want to improve learning outcomes. And that also is possible. But of course, it doesn't have that kind of SLT buy-in. So look, here is an example of a way in which a number of different Google components, those individual tools that make up G Suite, can be combined to achieve more than they might achieve individually. An analogy that I've used way too many times now, I really want to come up with some new ideas, but it's like thinking of this thing as a vast bucket of Lego with different shaped bricks in it. And the different shaped bricks are the individual tools that make up G Suite. So you've got Drive, and you've got Calendar, and you've got Mail. These things together, that good things can happen. Now, a certain amount of it can be put together with very little in the way of technical competence. So the things I'm going to show you, for instance, anybody could do that. If you go a little bit further and you start to push the glue between these services, and in particular, I don't want to scare you, but there is this thing called scripting, which some of you may have heard of, and Ollie, we're lucky to have in the room an expert in that area. Ollie's stuff is a fantastic example of the way that you can join up individual components to make a workflow. And that's when processes in schools start to become more intelligent. Schools are increasingly driven on data, the idea that you need to collect data, store it, analyze it, and present it in an understandable form is what drives an awful lot of school activity these days. And the G Suite collection of tools is actually tailor-made for that. You might, for instance, be using Google Forms to collect information about learner behavior, learner progress, about the satisfaction of your staff or your well-being of staff or satisfaction of parents. That is automatically stored and analyzed by Google. Responses to forms that you send out are automatically collected by Google in a spreadsheet, and some basic statistical analysis is performed. So then that information is available for you, and if you are a spreadsheet ninja and want to dive in, you can do amazing things with the data in there. And if you go one step further and learn how to script, you can pull the data out of that spreadsheet and make it appear in report format, which is incredibly useful. I mean, I personally think that we're on the cusp of being able to do kind of permanently, continuously updated school reports, for instance, which might feed off some process like that. And an awful lot of school life is about that kind of process. I'll give you a stupid example. The tap is washing and the tap is dripping in the girls' cloakroom, and the maintenance guy needs to know about it. Well, you know, I would absolutely systematically introduce a form for that which lives in the online staff room, which anybody can access on their phone. So whoever needs to stop and that automatically goes to and that is a trivial example of something that happens 1,000 times a day. Might be behavior or even behavior which quite often might be something I'm not trying to channel because people but it's a stupid way to collect that information.
practice what happens. So, combine these different Lego bricks into solutions that address the needs of those various communities of interest. This, for instance, as I said, uses calendar, it uses Google Sites to build this framework. And underneath the banner at the top there, you can see that there are a number of areas. These are in fact all pointing at folders in the shared folder structure on Google Drive. Now, I'm trying to use language to make it obvious that we're not using Google. You've got infinite storage for free in a thing from Google Drive, so you can store everything. You don't need your school servers filling up. I guarantee you 95% of on your school servers. It's going to take you that. But if you want to move all of that up to the cloud, you can. And then provide a simple way to get at that. This, in fact, the way I use the staff room, which is something that I built, you can easily build your own. The way that I use this becomes the one shopping destination. Start the school day to find out what's going on in school. They can get to the Google tools. That's easy enough, but this provides yet another way of getting to the school. And they can get all of the paperwork and all of the documentation that they require in one simple location. We might have a similar version of the same idea for governors. A simplified interface because they don't need as many of the Google tools. But this might be where the governor's diary and announcements that you need them to know about, some contextually related news coming into the outside world, and all of the documentation that they need to be able to get at. You could do the same thing with the students. You know, this is a year 4 hub that I put together some time ago. It's probably outdated now, but it's a way of giving them a single place to go. This, for instance, I have loading up on the Chromebooks, and you can drive this so that it's automated. When a year 4 kid opens the lid of the Chromebook, that's the page that is produced. Just all the time thinking, what are the requirements of this group of people that I'm addressing? And what can I build that addresses those requirements? If we go a little bit further, let's go to, for instance, yeah, so look, here's an example. It's again a very trivial example, but I've changed the pictures to protect the innocent here. But this is an example of what I was talking about just now. This information about the contact details or whatever it might be for this person has been provided on a form which went out to all the members of this organisation. They then fill in the form. It goes into a spreadsheet. This little bit of magic in here, which is the directory, is a piece of code that pulls the data out and presents it in a certain way so that when we click on these items, we're getting the specific details. So it's just the presentation of data that's been captured using the Google tools. Similar idea here with a group of trust. In fact, this isn't a trust, this is a loose association of schools in Bristol, 24 schools, who want to work in a more organised and efficient way, and they're now sharing quite a lot of their resources, so they're not having to rewrite policies from scratch and that kind of thing. Now, all of those examples that I've given you have been built using Google Sites, and I've been fairly vocal and on record as saying that I didn't think that I would get to see a new version of Google Sites in my lifetime. It's been promised for many years and never quite got there. You let me know if I'm running over. Yeah, okay. And then, sure enough, as soon as I went public with this, I don't think it was ever going to get new sites. Well, guess what? New sites came along. And it is the simplest possible tool for building this kind of resource. It's in its version 1 release, so there are some shortcomings with new sites. But I'm just going to show you, and it looks like we won't have time for you to dive in and do this, so I'd encourage you to try this later. Log into a Google account and go to
clicking on the bottom of this into site, and your options, you select this, and as you click this, you have a choice of clicking on classic or new sites. So if I create a new site, this now is, and I think the problem here comes from the word website. If you look at all of those things that I showed you earlier, those are examples of communities or containers with all the relevant stuff in. And so that's what we're doing here. Now I might say, for instance, that I'm going to build a new site. I can't get the click on this mouse at all. I just call it a Weald. Let's change the image for one of Google's image. Let's use one of their standard images. And now, what used to be a fairly painful process in old sites is now completely trivial. You double click on the white space, and you say, what am I going to add to the page here? Let's put some text in, and say, here is some text. Okay, I want to make that type, and I'm going to change the coloring to give it a bit more emphasis. Underneath here now, another bit of text, some body text. Okay. And what's changed in sites is now that it's incredibly drag, drop, and user friendly. So you literally just move these things around until you're happy with them. And now I'm going to put in an image here. So I'll put in an image. It's Google. All of the things are connected to it. So an image which lives in my Google Drive. I've got some examples in this folder. Let's put that one in. Resize it, move it around in a very drag-drop way. And what's great about this new version of sites, after all, 99% of what you are going to put in your sites will be text and images and hyperlinks. But let's put in one other object in here. Let's put in a folder. So I'm going to include now a folder of stuff from my Google Drive. Let's say insert. And again, I can resize that to whatever I want, and maybe show that as thumbnails rather than as a list. And so now I've included a bunch of files of any type, it doesn't matter what those files are, from Drive in this page of my website. And because this is a modern tool, it is what's known as responsive, which means that it will automatically adjust itself. This is what it looks like on the web. But if I go to the mobile phone version, you can see that that site is now completely optimized for presentation on a phone, or indeed to create a responsive site that's going to work well with all of those. So do have a play with Google Sites. The new sites is utterly user friendly. It doesn't have all of the tricks of old sites. We've got a year for them to introduce all the functionality that I will need to move all my old sites across to new sites. But if you're starting out, it's a brilliant tool for building something for your class, for your subject, for your year group, whatever it might be, or even for internal communication, as I showed you earlier. I'm going to touch on one last thing for just 30 seconds, as Jem asked me to. I've been helping schools, as I say, for 10 years, and change is hard. Okay? It is hard to introduce new technology into schools, or new pedagogy, or new anything, and not just schools. Change is hard, full stop. So some time ago, I wanted to build a platform which would allow me to break down the learning into chunks, so that after I've done training sessions, I could leave behind something a little bit more engaging than things I've done in the past. So, for instance, now when I'm working with a school, I might break the training down into strand for school leavers, the strand for classroom practitioners, and then the strand for admin and ancillary staff. And inside there might be a series of steps that that group of people need to perform to work through the change program so that it really sticks. And the reason that it sticks is that each of the badges, which is what this is all about, is made up of a number of tiny bite-sized challenges that you can do in the advert break at Downton Abbey, or on the bus on the way home, or in the queue at the supermarket. Because we're all time poor. We haven't got the time to invest that we would like in learning new tools. The reason it's called 1, 2, 3, Go is that each exercise is made up of some learning content, in this case watch a video, then there's a checklist, did you get everything? Then there's some kind of test, I'm not in the right account here, so I want to see this is a Google form, understanding, and then it rewards you by saying, yes, you've completed that challenge. You can now go and collect a badge, which will live in your trophy cabinet, which shows that I'm now a Google Ninja, whatever the badge is for. So that, along with the very excellent training that Google provides free of charge with its G Suite tools, means that there really shouldn't be any idea by anybody, however technologically unsavvy they might be, can't get to grips with this way of working. If you can, to be honest, the problem, as I said earlier, is not the tools. If you can use iPlayer and you can use Amazon, you can use Google's G Suite tools. It's more about the culture and remembering to work differently. Okay, so my takeaway from this then is going to be, please do dive into Google News sites and have a play, and you will be amazed at what you can do with very little artistic ability, very little technological know-how. You'll be knocking out great science in no time at all. Thanks very much indeed. I think I better stop, right?
Just going to touch on something quickly while it's relevant. We've got a lovely lady at the back who has been making tea and coffee and stuff. Do you know anything about new sites, Jane? Can you just tell everybody who you are and what you do here first? I'm absolutely throwing this out.
Thanks very much, Ed.
Sorry, Jane.
I'm Jane Feller, I'm the library manager here at Weald School. I've just tweeted that we were looking at the Google website, the Google site, because I used the Google sites on A Suite last year in the summer to build the website, which Ed is now bringing up. It's live on the web. You can actually find it, and I've just tweeted its address. But that's my website. And I did it with the intention that the library could have its own website, looking at all sorts of different things for the students to use. We've got news, we've got our book awards, we've got all the different book awards that we follow and take part in. We've got authors for the students to look up. We've got a thing there about student librarians and what they can do and the levels that they can do with our student leadership program. There's events and competitions, which I don't think have much on it at the moment. There's all sorts of other things I mentioned in there, literary blogs, apps, bookshops, Book Lovers Paradise, just in case you go on holiday and you fancy a browse for a bookshop. Send me one, when you find one, send it to me and I'll put it on the website.
And had you built websites before?
No, I was a complete novice. And he came along and said to me one day in the LRC, "Oh, Jane, would you like to build a website for the library?" And I went, "Yeah, I'd love to. How do I do that?" So he started me off just with the old, as he puts it, little crumbs of how to get started. And once I knew basics, I just went on and built the monster that you see before you. So, but the students can have access to it at all times. They can look at it. I've added revision and preparation pages. And I've said to the students, if you think of something that you find useful, tell me about it and I'll put it on the website.
Kudos.
Yeah, what Jane said, so I gave Jane literally the breadcrumbs. I said, you can just do this and do this. And lo and behold, that's what she's creating. It's fantastic. I then did the same with our central admin team. So now all of our paperwork that's going through central admin is no longer paper. So it doesn't necessarily have to be about teaching learning, but actually we've cut out an awful lot of forms that go through central admin. The finance department has just gone, can we have a site? So Izzy, who I showed in our central admin team how to make the site, she's now gone to finance and said, well, I'll start you off, show them how to make it. Now they've made one, they're going paperless. And okay, I'm not, cost saving is one thing, but actually working smarter is so much better.
It's actually, I'm not sure we should be talking about the UK cycling team in the current climate, but marginal gains is a very real philosophy. If you can shave off 30 seconds of a task that people do repeatedly and do a lot, they will love you for it. Because none of us have enough time. That's why we don't learn new tools, because we haven't got the time to spare to learn how to be smarter. So if you can come along with something that just shaves off those 30 seconds or 1 minute every time, then that's a really good way to approach the implementation of these tools.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Mark. Thanks, James. Sorry for dropping you. Right.
That's all right.
Okay, so we're going to go to Ollie. You want something?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, cool.
Sorry guys, I'm going to take 10 down for 3 minutes. Everyone on your Google Classroom, just post it and more things you guys play around. And it's going to tie in quite nicely with whatever you're looking for. So on your Google Classroom, you should see a link to a Google form. You have to refresh your page. And I'm going to talk very quickly about coding and app script that Mark talked about, to show you how it's actually not going to be scary. I've got hands up no formal IT qualifications. I'm pretty self-taught. About 3 or 4 years ago, I started dabbling around with a few bits of HTML and CSS, which I don't even know what that is, but it's basically the back end of the internet. And then I discovered this thing called Google Apps. So everyone's just mindful. Enter your email address. It could be the one that you're on now, so TM1 through something, so your number, or any email address you want. And I'd just like to enter your name, some text to be translated, and then choose a language that can be translated into. And then just put where you're from. So a postal address, anything that be read by Google Maps. Right. And after you put it in, I'll show you what to do in a matter of seconds. So as a math teacher, I realised a lot of stuff I could probably automate. So I started playing around with self-marketing Google Forms, and I started creating add-ons and doing things like that. So talking about cover requests, so we fully automate that in our schools, and I think since 2014 when we had our first iteration, we've saved somewhere in the region of 40,000 bits of paper. Because every bit of cover had to be printed off 3 or 4 times and stored a file somewhere, and it can all be tracked on a spreadsheet automatically. So I had no formal idea of what I was doing. I just thought, let's start playing around with this. And what I found out was it's actually very easy to use. So after you've got your form, you guys can all have a look. So on the spreadsheet here, I've got all of your responses there. And so a Google form links really nicely with a Google Sheet. So it's a really handy way to analyze data and collect it. So what I'm going to do in a minute is I'm going to run a couple of scripts that are going to do some clever things with this one script, right? These scripts didn't take you too long to write. You've just got to have a kind of nice idea. But I'll show you what we have in a spreadsheet. There's this thing called the script edit. So I'm going to open up this, and I'm going to show you this Google script example. And so all of this is really well documented. Now, just hands up, who looks at that thing? That looks ridiculous. I can't really understand it. Yeah, there you go. So I was exactly the same a few years ago. Don't worry, there's actually only really about 10 lines of code. These things in a backslash are just comments, so that when I come back to look at my code later, I kind of know what I was talking about, because otherwise it might make no sense to me as well. So essentially, what it's going to do, the first one, it's going to translate some text. Right? So very basically, it's going to get that spreadsheet I'm working on, it's going to get all the data. Now this thing here, when you go into a loop, it's going to loop through all that data. And can you see this one here, the Gmail app? So this is built in, so I can actually link any spreadsheet with Gmail. I can do whatever I want with it. And I'm just going to tell it to email all of you guys back, saying hi, and then your name, the subject. Then it's going to, here's your text, it's going to put the text you initially, and then it's going to translate it. Okay? So Andy, this is the first time we probably use it with your account. You're all going to get an email from Weald. So the first time we use it, I'll get this kind of thing to review, and I'm going to allow this. And then if you guys can all check the emails that you put in here now. So an email will go to all of these accounts here, and it's going to translate in a matter of seconds all of your stuff here. So everybody, check the email you entered in there. You should have received by now an email. And so all of that goes through all that information, you translate an email like that. It took 16 seconds. It's quite quick. If I did that manually, that would have taken me a long time. So So if you guys check the email account you entered there, you should have an email with the exam section. Another cool thing, which might be an idea for using this call, is now I'm going to create a map. I'm going to take all of your locations, put them on a map, and email them back to you. Let's try this one. So to run it, I just press play. And again, the same thing, so you'll get an email to the same email account with a link to a map with all of our locations. And just checking, they should all be fine. All right. So that took me just a few seconds. Andy, if yours are running slower. Normally when I do this, it takes maybe 1 or 2 seconds. I don't know if it's your internet or just your account. 15 seconds. You can probably get that down to about 1 or 2 seconds, right? So it's really useful. So just some ideas of what you might do. So you can translate parent communications, which is really handy. So we have all of the home addresses, all of our parents, our school. Whenever we send a communication code, we don't send it in English. So if we have people who don't speak English at home, we will just automatically translate it. That communication they receive automatically goes through in theirs. All right, it's really, really useful. I've set up a thing called a live class word count tracker. So I taught Edtech ICT for a few years. I found kids would sit there for maybe 40 minutes not writing anything. But if you have a refresh that goes through every sort of 1 or 5 minutes with a word count tracker, you can see exactly what they've been doing, how much. So you can hold them accountable live. All right, a bit too dry, but it's quite useful. I've mentioned the cover requests, lesson observations, do all that through a Google form. They fill that in, it all gets on a central spreadsheet, and then it gets emailed out to the relevant members of staff. Form submissions to calendar events. Basically, if you think of all the stuff that Google have, there's what's called an API for it, and you can make it all interact. So you can take stuff from a Google form or a Google sheet, chuck it on a calendar, you can send an email, do whatever you want. So start off slow. If you would like to play around with this at your own time, make a note of this link there, all right? And I've got some really basic kind of how-to steps. And I would thoroughly recommend that the teachers should start teaching themselves how to code, all right? Because you can save a lot of time, Invest in a small amount now, and you'll save a lot in the future. And actually, you can get your kids stuck with this as well. See what they can do. All right. So that was it. I think Andy, you've got a call now. I have. Is that right? So thanks very much. If you want to speak to me about any of this, I'll be around after here till about half 8. So please come back. Cheers.
Give me just 2 seconds. My phone's going up from my pocket telling me that this lovely teacher in America who's quite loud. I have to apologise in advance because 1, he is loud, and 2, it's a Man United supporter. So I apologize. He will make reference to the fact he supports Man United and I support Man City. So it's a bit of fun. Let's see if we can get him. He's going to be sitting in his car, I think, because he's at a conference in America today. So he's, I think it's possible to work for us, please. Oh, he's there. There he is. Greg, can you hear us?
Yes, sir, I sure can. I just can't see you.
Oh, okay. Hang on a second. Let me see. It might be the camera's not on. Oh, yeah. So that should come on. So you should be able to see a group of teachers sitting here looking at you, sitting in your car, about to talk to us about what we do when we talk to each other with our classes.
You bet, I sure can. All right, perfect. Hello, everybody. My name is Red Oldham, and I teach at St. Genevieve Middle School in St. Genevieve, Missouri. I do want to let you know that Andy and I planned this on purpose. Today is the last day of the transfer window in January. I did let Southampton know that a 54-year-old left back is available from the state, but I haven't heard it from anybody yet. So I am letting you know that I did contact Southampton. So, but anyway, I am driving back from a conference. It's funny, I told Andy that I was at a conference at Lake of the Ozarks, which is in the middle of the state, and so that is about a 3.5 hour drive, and that's a kind of a quick drive for us. Well, Andy says, in 3.5 hours, you guys are in Belgium, so it's a little different from what we do. Missouri is a pretty big state. But I had the opportunity to talk to other educators about how to do global collaborations. I will tell you that global collaborations may be the neatest thing I've ever done in education. I really love that. And the reason why I like it is it connects your kids with other kids around the world. And it does so in the way that their level, the world. In March of last year, my kids did a Socratic seminar with kids from Mexico, and we discussed the proposed, at that time, the nominee Donald Trump's wall and the impact it would have on Mexico and the United States. Well, kids who really thought that they were pro-Trump supporters had a real difficult time telling those kids from Mexico that they were pro-wall. And it really broke down the barriers between those two nations. And it was just a fantastic discussion. Very, very civil, but really, really fun. The way I use global collaborations with not only Andy, but people around the world is I use it as part of my world history unit. So as we study Greece and Italy, and when we do non-Western with Mexico, and then we look in the Far East when we do Korea, and then we do the Holy Roman Empire, I'll bring in the Czech Republic, and then we end the year with Spain. So I use a lot of different countries. What my students do is we start off by using a Padlet. And on the Padlet, kids will introduce themselves with a picture. I may tell them to say, what your favorite Christmas present was, what's your favorite sport, what's your favorite activity, whatever the case may be. And then I'll have them list their Instagram and Snapchat addresses. The kids will exchange Instagram and Snapchat addresses, and then they'll begin the collaboration outside of school. You obviously have to trust your students. I strongly recommend that you guys do some type of digital citizenship course where you talk about what is proper, the way to use social media. I've had very, very few instances that were cleared up really quick that could have been deemed inappropriate. Most of the time, the kids just do a great job with it, they love it. But more importantly, we as educators are teaching our kids how to use social media responsibly. So I believe you kind of have to give your kids the opportunity to be trustworthy, and then you can give them, then you can trust them. My kids are amazed at the new friends that they connect with. I have kids, I teach 8th grade, which is middle school here in the States, and next year they'll go to high school or upper school. And I'll talk to my kids who I had last year. They are still communicating with those kids from Spain, from Italy, from Greece, from Sweden, all over the world. They're still communicating with those kids. Now, what you'll find when you talk to people from the continent, what their kids really like, or what the teachers really like, is those kids are practicing their English each and every day with your kids. And so they're actually learning their lessons in a practical application with your students. My students, on the other hand, realize that the rural school, the rural community that I live in, we have about 4,000 people that live in our town, that the world is a lot bigger than just our little corner of the world. And so it's a great activity. Andy, what else do you think I need to go over at this time?
That's a good question, Matt. I'm going to talk about the mechanics in a minute, so I'll talk about how we put these things together and show some examples of what we did together. What other countries have you worked with? So what was your best and what was your worst? Let's have those two. And it doesn't have to be A. I'm quite happy that it might not be B.
Well, I was going to say, well, now I can't say English. That's okay. Probably my least, none of them are bad, but my least productive one was with South Korea. And it was the guy's first time doing a global collaboration. He had connected 8 or 9 different computers all at the same time on Google Hangouts, and there was a ton of reverb. And so he had to cut those out. He didn't put all his kids in groups of 4. And so you had like 30 kids yelling at one computer at the same time. So it just, when I start my global collaborations in the mechanics, I send out a letter and kind of tell people, this is how we do things. And Andy has all my material, by the way, and you guys can look at that. But they didn't do that. So as a result, my kids who showed up for that collaboration really didn't get to talk with those kids. The best ones, man, oh man, that would be really, really hard to tell. Boy, Spain is great. Greece is great. Italy was great. The kids from Sweden are great. The UK was really, really fun. The funny thing about kids at your school is when they got in front of the camera, they were camera shy last year. And that was one of Andy's first collaborations, and I know those kids will be a lot better this year. But really, it's just so fun. The more kids get on social media, the more they get to talk to each other, the more they understand each other. So then when you have the actual global collaboration call in the classrooms, those kids have their phones out, and they're actually texting each other on Snapchat and Instagram while the call's going on. So they're making those connections, and those connections are meaningful and they last a long time.
Right, that's awesome. What about time zones? Because time zones must be an issue. How do you get over the issue of time zones?
Okay, the cool thing with the Padlet is the Padlet's a link, and so time zones aren't an issue. So we can post on there with a picture and our social media addresses, and we can post a video, whatever the case may be, and you can do the same thing, and you can look at that during your school day. Conversely, when you actually do the call where you all get together, and we have what's called a breakfast club. So I'll bring in kids before school, and I bribe them with donuts, and so all the kids will come in early. But it becomes a very social event for my kids. Greece, which is we have to come to school at 6:15 in the morning. I had 43 kids convince their parents to drive them in at 6:15 in the morning. Think about your very best lesson, and how many of your kids would come in for your very best lesson at 6:15 in the morning? They just wouldn't. And so those kids will come in for that. For Italy and for Sweden and for France, kids will come in at 7:15 in the morning, and Spain as well. For you guys, I can actually do that the first half hour of my day. And so because we're only 6 hours different, minus 6. Really though, for you guys on the continent, it wouldn't be that big a deal because there's only a couple hours difference. But my kids just really bought into early morning collaboration, and it just makes it a social event, and the kids just love it.
Awesome, mate. One last thing, because I know people might have thought about this as well. What have you just done with the Viking Museum? So talk to us for the last minute about Viking Museum, and then I'll let you go and drive home.
Hey, no problem at all, man. I'm happy to do it. The really cool thing that you can do with this too is virtual field trips. And so if you're studying, for instance, if you wanted to know something about St. Louis, and our major marker is the Gateway Arch, and you wanted your kids to know about that, you could contact the Park Service, and you could do a live Google Hangout or live YouTube Live at the Gateway Arch, and you could tour that live. Well, for me, yeah, I did that with the Viking Ship Museum in Oslo, Norway. We're studying Vikings right now, and my kids actually got to look at a live field trip with the curator walking us around, talking to us about the 3 Viking ships that are from the 9th century. My kids had a list of questions that they were looking over, and they were typing questions into the YouTube live box, or the comment box. They were getting those questions answered. Little activity. It was just such a neat thing. My American history kids have taken virtual field trips. They went to the World War II Museum in New Orleans. We'll go to a cotton museum in Arkansas. I mean, there's just places all over the world you can go to on these virtual field trips, and it really brings your lessons to life. I do want to add Andy didn't ask this, but I want to add, even though I'm a social studies teacher, if you're a math teacher, you can get a hold of a class and you can do problems together and see if you guys solve the problems the same way. A science teacher, they have all kind of virtual field trips where they take you all over the world, and you can do like weather experiments and things like that. English teachers, they have like you write poetry or you do blogs together, so that you have all these different subject matters that you can do with other classes. And it just really makes the world so much smaller, and it really brings your lessons together, or makes them come to life.
I'm just going to open for questions if anybody's got a question for you before I let you go. So has anybody got a
No
question?
problem at all.
Bear in mind, Brett is about 4,000 miles away in his car, sitting outside 7-Eleven, we reckon, in the background. So if you have any questions for him, or if you want, or I mean, I'll share his resources that he's got, and I'll talk to you for the last couple of minutes about the global collaboration. Has anybody got any specific questions for? Yep. Okay, Ben.
Just in the technical point, how easy or hard was it to get in contact with the museums and the make contact and get them to set up a call?
Question. Now, I can send you guys a Google spreadsheet that has, I believe, over 200 virtual field trip partners that you can just contact those people and set up a time for the virtual field trips. It's a lady named Karen Wilkins put that together, and it is a great, great resource. And the museums are trying to find a way to connect with people, and so that's one of the reasons, one of the ways they can do that. Also, if you just know somebody, like I'm going to hit Andy up pretty soon. I wanted to go to Winchester Cathedral farming and walk around Winchester and show my kids the cathedral. I would love to show that. You know, like I said, we have the oldest settlement west of the Mississippi in St. Genevieve with houses from the 1700s, which is really old for us here in the States. And if your kids want to look at that, I'd be happy to show you around St. Genevieve.
Thanks, Brett. Any other questions before I let you go? Any other? No? Well, thank you very much for taking time out of your day. Appreciate you sitting in your car because you've got better signals than in the hotel. We'll definitely catch up sometime soon to do something awesome.
That sounds great. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Cheers for that. Thanks.
Thank you.
So I'm going to really, my session was about our global collaborations and what I've done. So, like about this time last year, and let me get rid of my long list of emails as well. That's not going to be back into it. I'll go there. That's fine. I going to pick something that's going to move with this battery. Okay, cool. So this time last year, we decided to set up a project in maths, and I wanted to change our data handling cycle. So I looked at thinking, okay, so what do we do? So we previously had a project where we go to Kenya each year with our sixth form. They hand out paper questionnaires. They get an awful lot of data which somebody has to key in, and then you start looking at these great big A3 sheets of data. Then the kids have got to type, and it's just a mess. So I went, okay, well let me bring it to the 21st century. Let me try and redesign the task. And that's really where the technology fitted in here. I had a task that was really nice. We got some raw data for some kids, but it was just really impractical. And I went, you know what, I've got to do something about it. So I spent a weekend with my son in hospital, unfortunately, but I thought, you know what, I've got to get this going. So I got onto Google Communities. Now, Google Communities is like a social media for Googlers, anybody. It doesn't have to be teachers. There are thousands of communities out there. They're predominantly, the non-teaching ones are predominantly from America. However, there are loads. We've got about 2,000 members in the UK, and they're mainly educators. So the GET UK is an English one for teachers. And so I thought, okay, well, I'm going to join some countries I'm interested in. I joined Denmark, South Africa, Australia, America. I joined a couple. I joined Connected Classroom. And the second you join Connected Classrooms, you see that people just want to hang out. And they're starting really simple. They go, let's do mystery location. 20 questions, yes or no questions. Where are you in the world? Okay, and they do it live by video. Now, I did one. It was pants. It was really pants. School was in America, somewhere in the mid, somewhere right in the middle. And the second our kids go, well, are you in Ohio? No, we're South Ohio. Okay, north of Ohio. They've got no concept of America, the States, and the same the other way. So I thought, okay, that's not working. What else is there? People do mystery number. So primary class, year one kids, they have a number written on their whiteboard by the teacher. And then the kids on the other side of the planet have 20 questions to work out what that number is. Whatever. So a colour, a book. I've seen people share reading with them. So actually, there's just a kid in one. I was a teacher doing a story time with a group of kids in their class. You know what? They've just turned on their webcam so that they're casting it to anybody else who's interested in listening to that story. And then they arrange, at the end of that, they go, right, let's spend 5 minutes just asking some so short questions. And this can be right from reception year 1, year 2, all the way up to 18. The last thing I did, the last one of these I've done was my sixth form. And I said to them, right, I can't justify my curriculum time to do this. I can't justify giving up one of my few lessons I have with you, with maths, to do a global collaboration. But I have a school in Park Hills, which is not far from St. Louis, that were desperate to meet and mingle and chat. So I said, okay. So we set up a Padlet. I'll have this up in a minute when we finish. I can show you what the Padlets look like. And I set up a Padlet in the UK. And I said, right, little mini profile, a bit like Facebook, little picture, a couple of details about you, and ask them a couple of questions. And they did the same on a different one. So then all of a sudden I said, right, here's the link to the American one. And they went, here's the link to the, and then I showed the English link to them. And the kids just went crazy. I've never seen so much information and so much nice information about what kids get up to. Found out some of the kids I've been teaching for 4 or 5 years are scout leaders, young scout leaders. And I'm a Cub Scout leader, and I was like, I didn't know you did that. Oh yeah, we went to this. I was there. And I didn't realise, and I didn't see them, and I just thought, wow, how amazing. I was learning stuff about my own kids. But at the same time, I'm thinking, hang on a minute, there's some scouts in America that now want to connect to my Cub Crew on a Thursday night. And that's huge. I mean, I don't know, I wasn't a Cub Scout, but I don't know many Cub Scout groups out there that will do that. And the kids were I said to them, it's up to you whether you share your social media. Now, we have a policy in school, they can't use their social media accounts, they can't use their phones through school, that's fine. Without permission of the teacher. And I went, you know what, you're old enough, and if you have any issues, I can't police it, you tell me and I'll tell their teacher, and we'll nip it in the bud. So if you're not happy with what somebody's saying, you know how to block it, easy. So they've got the tools, and I went, okay, if you want to post your Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, whatever, then that's up to you. I can't stop you doing it. So we got, as Matt said on one of his, so we got to the actual video hangout. One came in for lunch. They sat down at lunchtime and had a chat. They came in for breakfast. So they were literally eating breakfast as we were sitting there eating lunch, which is kind of cool but weird at the same time. And just as Matt said, we had a series of questions. Somebody spoke each time, and there were people sitting there on their phones, and I had no issue with this. And they were chatting to each other, but not on camera. And I guess our kids are slightly conservative. They're a bit shy in front of the actual camera when it's face to face, but they're quite happy sitting there Snapchatting and tweeting. And then we went, okay, let's push the boat. Can we run a Kahoot internationally? Can I host a Kahoot in my classroom in prefab 60 building down there, and actually run it with a group of Americans? And yes, we did. And it was awesome. It was the most fun we've ever had, and the competitive nature of the kids, and they just had an absolute blast. Now, some of those kids, that was about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Some of those kids, I see them every day, and I say, how many people are you still talking to today? 4. I went, so that's 4 friends that you didn't have. And I said, why did you pick those 4? Well, they've got similar interests to me. They like the same type of music. They're into the same. And you think, hang on a minute. These kids wouldn't have gone anywhere near Park Hills in America ever. And even when they go on holiday, they're not out there to make friends with other people that they interact with. They just go on holiday, go to Disneyland or whatever, and that's it. But actually, they're now friends with people from America. My next project, hopefully, we're going to do again with Year 7 in maths, and we're going to try and get some more countries involved. But we're going to try and, grow that friendship. I mean, in our classroom, I've got one kid from South Africa in my classroom, and she's one of like 32. And we are slowly becoming more diverse. It's quite rural, but we are becoming slightly more diverse. But actually, when you go out to the workplace, and the gentleman's from Boston, and when I gave my talk the other day at BET, I did a similar talk at BET, and I was talking to teachers there, and I had 2 comments to them and said, Miss Wiggers, we've never done anything like this, and we'd be really interested in it. We really need to expose this to our kids. Because in the workplace, when you go to events like this, you go to BET, or you go to, you go and work in any multinational company, you're going to meet people who are from different countries. They've got different accents, they've got different, different beliefs. And if we can ingrain some of that using the tools we've got. Now, Hangouts is free. It comes, you know, it's free for anybody who has a Gmail account. Actually, you don't have to have a school Gmail account. But if you've got it at school, it's fine. You can control it, you can video chat, you can text chat. Brett and I have become really close friends, actually. He's coming over to the UK in July. Him and his wife are going to come stay with us, which is kind of interesting and scary because the house is nowhere near ready for visitors from the States. But he's going to stay with us. And he said, bring your family, come to the States, spend a week with us. But staff we do too. We're looking at ways of teaching similar lessons or similar content, things like that. So that's another strand of just bringing technology. And that's about, and I suppose technology is all about redesigning what you do in your classroom. It's not about just doing the same thing differently, because why are you going to waste time learning yourself, teaching the kids to do something differently? It's about doing something you can't do. You can't have a video hangout with kids from one other country in the world, let alone the whole of the world, without the use of technology. We really need to. I have put a form on the classroom, and I'm going to send the form out after tonight. So if you've got a chance, the form I've asked you to fill in on the actual classroom stream feeds into the same form I sent to Brett to get some kids in, and some of the Mexican kids in. And I'll just share that data. It's simple, it's just a silly little quiz, but we have really run out of time, unfortunately. But if you get a chance to fill it in, as I say, I'll share it with you. You guys all filled in the form when you came in, so I've got your details and I will email them out. There's a couple of prize draws that we've got, and I will randomly select, or XMA will randomly select the winner for the Chromebooks, because I think that'd be a little bit unfair if I accidentally pick myself. So I'll let XMA do that. So there is a class set Chromebooks up for grabs. There's a meal voucher which I left in my classroom, so I'll make sure that comes out to a lucky winner as well. So basically that was a meal, £50 meal voucher. Go out for dinner, tell them to see you, class charge. I think there might be a hamper as well, which I've just got to check by email later. Any questions for me or any of the speakers? Then come and talk to us. Have a look at the other stand. We're here till about 8:30. We'll probably end up being a little bit later than that. If you have any questions, then please. Thank you.